Robservations episode 552 is brought to you by the first annual Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival. Have you made your film? You still have 3 weeks left. You can still make a film. You know you've always wanted to. And in this case, I'm giving you a venue in which you can play your film and have it seen by hundreds of people. Well, greetings, Imagination Connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your Master of Fun and Wonder, your Viceroy of Verisimilitude, your Sommelier of Cinema, your Archbishop of Banterbury, your Chancellor of Cheerfulness, your Pharaoh of Physical Media, and, of course, your existential Mr. Rogers, Robert Meyer, Burnett. And I'm, of course, robcasting at you Imagination Connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. And what a day this is. Finally, the wait is over. I'm, of course, talking about Dawn of the Dead, the second... No, I'm not. I wish I was. I don't have that yet. I want to be talking about it. But, of course, everyone is calling the election. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Joe Biden is the next president, the 46th president of the United States, and Kamala Harris is the first woman of color vice president that we have ever had. So... that's a very exciting thing. It's a very exciting thing all the way around. However, there's something that I would like to say about all of this. I was talking to my mom. My mom, staunch Democrat her whole life, Jewish woman raised in a good Jewish household in Seattle. I'm like, Mom, this was before the election had been called. I'm like, Mom, so, are you excited? What do you think about the election? And she's like, well, I hope Trump comes out on top. And I was like, really? She goes, yeah, I voted for Donald Trump. And I said, you did? And she says, I did. And I stopped to think about it for a while. And I said, well, that's interesting. You've always voted Democratic. And she's like, that's true. But I said, let me guess. She's 81 years old. And she lives off of her money that she has. She's inherited some. She made some. But she has made investments, and basically she has mutual funds and stocks and things like that, and she lives off dividends and things like that. And I said, let me guess. During the Trump administration, your mutual funds doubled in value. And she was like, yes, they did. And I would like to see those trends continue. And then she also said to me, she said, Bob, she lived in Seattle her whole life. And she was extremely upset by what she saw happening in Seattle during the protests. And of course, when part of Seattle was part of the neighborhoods that she grew up in and around, mere miles from, were allowed to be taken over and vandalized. And she saw a lot of things that she disagreed with. And she was saying things like, I would normally support the positions that these protesters were taking, but it's one thing to protest. It's another thing to destroy your community and destroy the businesses. And I just don't think it's right. I don't like these trends. I don't understand why people think that it's okay to infringe upon the rights of others in order to achieve their own goals. And she's like, that's what democracy is. And I told her, I said, I can't argue with you. And for me, what I'm interested in as a human being is I would like to live in a society that appreciates progression in terms of culture, in terms of science, in terms of our knowledge. And I like people to participate. And I like there to be constructive dialogue and moving forward. And clearly, especially over the last 4 years, the country has become very divided along strict lines. And if this election has taught us anything, especially, I think that those, I would call myself, I've always said I'm a progressive, I'm a classical liberal, but I consider myself a progressive and sort of a lefty. But clearly, the message to me that this election says, I think, and it should say to all of us, is we have a long way to go. This was not some kind of a Democratic landslide. And of course, I worked a project that I'm still working on, crisis medicine, that was all shot in and around Portland. Portland's a mess. And what's happened in Portland, I have many friends that live there. My sister lives there. And people are pretty shocked at what's been happening in Portland. And I think rightfully so. And it made me really think when my mom was telling me this. I'm like, yeah, we really need to. We have a long way to go. And my mom, who voted for Trump, her only issue was that she made more money during the Trump administration than she had made. And a woman at her age, all she cares about is her security, and her money is her security. And it was increased, and I couldn't argue with that. I'm like, that's a very pragmatic way of looking at things, and she didn't want that to change. Now, I'm not saying that the stock market or anything is going to change under a Biden presidency. Who knows? But in the case of my mom, she had a point. I wasn't going to be able to convince her. We don't talk politics, but when she told me that, I was surprised. And I knew exactly at first why she did it. And she wasn't wrong, because in her mind, what the Trump administration has brought to her life over the last 4 years is more stability to that life. She's made more money, which makes her not worry about money herself. She's always worried about security. It allows her to live a nice life. But as she gets older, she had leg surgery. She can't get out of the house. There's things she can't do anymore. So this was her issue. And I think what we have to remember is that I'm seeing this, everyone's celebrating, and rightfully so. It's always nice when a new president is elected. But I think what's really important that we have to remember is that, like my mom, I'm not going to pillory my mom for voting for Trump, because why she cast her vote was correct. I mean, she has made more money in the last couple of years. Now, I think, I'm interested in education. I'm interested in healthcare. I'm interested in civil rights and human rights being recognized. I want an immigration policy. I want legal immigration, but we also have to be compassionate at the same time. That's what this country is. There's a lot of things that I would like to see happen, and I am not fearful. But the fact is, in this election, Trump had more votes cast for him than were cast in 2016. Also, you had more Black Americans voting for Trump than they did in 2016. LGBTQ people voted for Trump more than they did in 2016. There are things happening in this country that need to be recognized on both sides. And there are certain things, I think the rise of the far left in this country, which normally I would think was my side of the aisle, they do not embody my ideals. And also, I felt a little bit of cancel culture myself this year. And what's happening in academia and this idea, I listen to students that go to school with Elizabeth talking about how they're Marxists. And I'm just like, you don't know what the hell that means. And it's a strange time that we're living in. But I think the only way we can move forward is to find common ground and move forward together. It's not about, we're in charge now. Whatever. Remember, I've said on the show many times, you cannot trade one oppression for another. Then you're just as bad as anything you want to change. The things that we want to get back to, I think, are the core values of the United States, and those core values, I think, are the same for everyone. Now, have we been perfect? No, but the founders of this country and the people that wrote the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, these are people that had ideas that were good ideas. They were imperfect people, but the ideas that they put forward are pretty perfect. Have we ever been able to live up to them? No. But the foundational documents of this country, I think, they're pretty striking. And what we need to do is we need to go back and figure out and come to some kind of consensus about how we're all going to move forward together. Because we're all living in this country together, and rather there's a lot of hatred. People are hating each other for no reason at all. It's like the way you hate a team. If you're a Tottenham Hotspurs fan, you don't like other teams. I don't know those other teams might be, but I'm sure. Crystal Palace, Paul Jenkins, Crystal Palace, The important thing is that we have to start coming together as Americans. And it's very disheartening when there are people, including our current president, questioning our election system, and people are equating election fraud with foreign meddling, which is not the same thing. And the fact that all states control their own elections. And also, think about it. The presidential election is also the same election as all of members of the Senate, for instance, all of the downvotes, the downstream votes for your parties. So if you don't think the presidential election was, in fact, done on the up and up, then all of the election results were not done on the up and up, including the Senate. And that doesn't really make much sense. It's not like we had a blue wave sweep over the country and make a Senate that is one side or the other. It's right down to the wire. It's going to come down to 2 runoffs in Georgia. The fact is our election process worked exactly the way it was supposed to. This time it was a little different because many people voted by mail, mostly Democrats, because Trump and the Trump administration and what was happening with the post office was encouraging people, their base, not to vote by mail. The deluge of mail-in votes made sure that the counting of those votes take a long time. And by the way, none of the results of any election are ratified immediately. So when someone says, well, none of the states have chosen, that's correct, but they don't have to choose right now. They have to ratify all of their votes, and that takes a while. So rather than gearing up for whatever social conflict there's going to be, why don't we gear up to see what we can do about reaching across to people that might disagree with us? It's what I say all the time. Every person you meet has a story to tell you have yet to hear. I didn't know. I heard a story from my mom that I didn't know, that she voted for Donald Trump. I was surprised as a lifelong Democrat to hear her say she did that. I was really shocked. And the story she told me, which was one that was completely based on 2 things, really. The money that she had coming into her has increased during the Trump administration, and what happened in Seattle over the summer gave her great concern because she has never seen anything like that, and she lived through the 60s. My mom went to Berkeley. So anyway, just something to think about as we transition into a new administration. I think the immortal words of John F. Kennedy, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And I think now is a good time to bring that idea back. Not just your country, but your fellow country people. What can we do? What can we do to make this place a better place for all of us, for all people, every American? What can we do? And I don't think getting gloating or getting angry or making fun of or I told you so, that's never something that's helpful. And I think that, I don't know, I'm preaching to the choir. You know what I'm saying. I just think that whenever you have a chance to do something new, you have a new project to take on, there's a chance for rebirth and a chance to make this one better. In the immortal words of Ed Wood, well, my next one will be better. And I think that we should think about that. Anyway, that's as political as I'm getting today. But man, yeah, my mom certainly threw me for a loop. This first letter cracks me up. This letter is from Donnie Pearson. Hello, Rob, and by the way, today is an all-letter day. It's an all-letter day because I keep falling behind on these letters, and there's a lot of them. So Donnie Pearson is here. Hello, Rob, and my PGSers. Hope everyone's Halloween weekend was as more phenomenal as mine. Speaking of which, I have read the news last Friday that Tessa Rao and Chance Perez got cast in Power Rangers Dino Fury as the Green and Black Ranger the Green and Black Ranger sibling team of Izzy and Javier Garcia, respectively. Yet the Green Ranger role was originally for Alexandra Nunez. I'm fine with the final decision from our good friends at Hasbro's Entertainment One, E1, and also with Dino Fury to be the first Power Rangers series ever to have a female Green Ranger, and also the first since Wild Force to have a gender-bent Power Ranger. You do not have to be a Power Ranger fan or a Super Sentai fan to let me know what you think. Thanks for reading, and remember, together we are more. May the power protect you all. That comes from Donnie Pearson. Well, Donnie, I love Super Sentai. I love Japanese sci-fi. I love Japanese anything, any kind of Japanese monsters or kaiju or anything. I even have a quarter scale Kamen Rider, the first one. I got to bring that down, man. I love that figure. It's upstairs. I got to bring it down. I think that's fantastic. I love hearing, while I might not be passionate about Power Rangers, I was a little too old. If I was younger, I would have loved it. But I appreciate your passion. It's good to find out these things. Anytime I can find out more, now I can fake it that I know more about Power Rangers than I actually do. But I'm glad you're excited. It gives me great joy when I hear from other people about the things they're excited about. I love it. Stubble McShave, I haven't read the Wheel of Time series, but nothing makes me happier than when Stubble writes in or sends in a super chat or a tip or something, and he's waxing rhapsodic about some element of the Wheel of Time series. And the fact that he's going to get his own TV series now, and let's face it, the only reason they're making a Wheel of Time TV series is, in fact, for our favorite Swede, one of our favorite Swedes, Stubble McShave. So I want to thank you, Donnie, for writing in and sharing your passion about the Go-Go Power Rangers with us. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that letter. This letter comes from S. Beam. S. Beam. By the way, Sean M., I noticed, just became a member of this channel. Thank you for that, Sean M. You're going to be a PGS VIP member. And, everyone's a VIP, but you know what I mean. But thank you for that. I appreciate you supporting the channel in that way. You're going to help make possible us printing books and all those kinds of things. And, so that's going to be fun. S. Beam writes in. S. Beam is not Sean M. S. Beam is S. Beam. S. Beam writes in and says, the beginning of a trek. I just finished the first 29 episodes of the original Star Trek, and to be honest, I'm not quite convinced that it is the better Star Trek. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed almost every minute of it. From the first episode per your instructions, where no man has gone before, it had me hooked. From seeing Captain Pike in Dalek form to the many women Kirk got to kiss or fall for or seem to have history with. This was definitely a show appealing to the idea of what young boys or men should want to grow up to be. The debonair captain going on space adventures with his crew. It still is appealing in that sense. It's a shame I can't get my kids to sit and watch it. My daughter had asked if I was watching a comedy. When I asked her why she thought it was a comedy, she said, it looks like a comedy. The guy's acting goofy. Referring to the acting of the late 60s. I assured her it was not a comedy. It's a generational issue that is seemingly tearing up the idea of what Star Trek was or should be. Other than this and Picard, I fell away from Star Trek after the TNG movies. I didn't get into Deep Space Nine or Voyager, but I'm going to put the effort in. I really enjoyed meeting the plethora of situations. The Enterprise crew found itself in. A few versions of Paradise, meeting unique godlike beings, the introductions of Khan, the Gorn, Romulans, and Klingons, and yes, time travel. Everything I would expect and enjoy in a Star Trek. The choices Kirk faces, there was a wonderful writing in almost every episode. The only negative thing I can say about it is that not all of the characters in the show seemed like they should be acting at all. Mostly side characters. There were times when the fight scenes were laughable. To end, my favorite character is Spock. My favorite episode of the season was Court Martial. Interesting. I enjoyed the writing and the acting of that episode the most. You know what? Court Martial, it's funny that you say that because Court Martial is sort of, even though it's not on Earth, it is probably one of the more down-to-earth Star Trek episodes ever because it deals with a legal proceeding, which, if you like procedurals and things like that, there have been many. And we've had a few legal proceedings on Next Generation as well. But Court Martial and meeting Samuel Cogley, Alicia Cook, What a great actor and what a great character. I really like Court Martial. It was one of those episodes where I'm like, when I was a kid, I'm like, they're going to court. And I didn't dig it, but it's one of those episodes as I got older, I was like, I dig this episode. And if you watch the remastered Star Trek, one of the great things about when they did the remastering of the original series, even though it was done on the cheap and it doesn't really hold up anymore, I wish they would redo the remastering. You find out things like, where was the ion pod that Ben Finney was in? How did this all work? And they augmented the Starbase matte paintings, and it was I really enjoy the episode. I'm thinking about doing a live show on YouTube myself, sharing the experience of this epic trek through the stars. Just have to pick a day I can do it. If anyone listening is interested in joining me, please let me know. I think it would be fun getting different views for the show. So, RMB, do you have a favorite episode from this season, one that stood out the most? That's enough for me now, and on to season 2. I will report back after it's done. Live long and prosper, S. Beam. Well, S. Beam, thank you for that. I very much appreciate that. There are so many episodes in season 1 that are good, Court Martial being one of them. I really love Balance of Terror. I think Balance of Terror is a great episode. That's, of course, where the Romulan warbird is, they didn't call it a bird of prey back then, but the Romulan ship commanded by Mark Leonard, who would later go on to play Sarek, Spock's father, is in command, and they're probing Federation defenses and finding out that they're pretty weak. So if the Enterprise cannot destroy this warbird before it crosses back into the neutral zone and announces to the Romulan Star Empire that, these guys are weak, we should hit them up, things could go bad very quickly. So I really like that episode. I love Errand of Mercy, the first Klingon episode, when they go to Organia and you meet the Organians. I love Arena, of course. Arena is another classic episode, and there's so many in season 1 that I like. There's even episodes that I'm not a fan of so much, like The Enemy Within, but watching Shatner perform both sides of his psyche is pretty great. But yeah, and of course Operation Annihilate with the Deneva and the nerve parasites, and I would be remiss if I did not mention City on the Edge of Forever, which is, of course, one of the great science fiction television hours ever made. So there's a lot, though, a lot to love in season 1 of the original series. So I can't wait to hear what you think of season 2. So thank you, S. Beam, for writing in. So I think that's pretty cool. Dean Mikatich is here. Hi, Rob and the PGS. Maybe you can answer something for me. In Discovery Season 3, Episode 3, we're introduced to Adira. I think it's Adira, who is a non-binary human with a Trill symbiote in their, he, she. Apologize. Adira pronouns have not been told to the audience. They have not. They're identifying her as her. The actress, or the actor, the non-binary person that is playing that character, I'm misgendering. This is terrible. I shouldn't be saying that. You know what? Let me find out how. I don't want to get this wrong. I don't want to misgender anybody, just like I don't want to dead name anyone. Hang on. This is how much I've been paying attention to modern Star Trek. Okay. I know it's Blue Del Barrio. Now I want to make sure that, let's see. I'll just call Blue they. I think I can't go wrong with that. So, but I'll go on. So, okay, here we go. I apologize. Adira pronouns have not been told to the audience, so I have no idea what pronouns to use. Well, they did call her she in the episode. So, which makes writing about Adira hard. So for the rest of this letter, I will just use the female pronouns to make things easier. We know from the TNG episode The Host, a Trill symbiote, but there's an N, symbiote, can survive in a human host for a day or so before it ends up killing the both of them. I've seen people mention this and say that Adira should be dead because of this, but I can let this slip. Adira is living roughly 800 years after Riker had that symbiote placed in him, so it's logical to believe that in that time, medicine has gotten to the point where it's possible to place a symbiote in a human host without killing both of them after a short time. So I see no issues with her being able to carry one. However, the one issue I can't work out, and that's the non-binary part. The host does not identify as male or female, which is all well and good, but Blue Del Barrio is a non-binary person in their own life. But maybe that's the secret of this, which seems strange because 800 years in the future, nobody cares. But anyway, the host does not identify as male or female, which is all well and good. Identifying as non-binary has only been something to appear in the Western world in the last 10 to 20 years or so. Would this even be a thing in the 31st century? No, I don't think it would be. I can see trans still being a thing, as that had been part of history since the dawn of time. There are multiple counts in history where a male has presented themselves as female and vice versa, and that is not even taking into account where some parts of the world cultures had a third gender, such as the Hajira of India. But like you said, Rob, trans should not be an issue by the 23rd century, let alone the 31st. But let's say non-binary is still a thing by the 31st. The Trill symbiote, assuming it is not a young symbiote, has led many lives as both a male and female. We also know that when a symbiote is joined with a host, they become a new being in a sense, as the host and the symbiote personality join to become a new personality. So with the host now joined, and with the knowledge of being both female as well as male, and the personality of the symbiote, would she not identify as one gender or another? That's a good question. I'm only coming from a human perspective, as in biological terms, we only have two genders. That is true. If she was born female, but being joined, and she now identifies as being male, well, that is not an issue, as it would be an easy operation to do, as we saw Dr. Bashir do to Quark in the Deep Space Nine episode Prophets and Lace. I think the writers have only added a non-binary character and actor just to score some political points, because if they really wanted to look at what does it mean to be non-binary, they would have had characters that identified as male or female and joined with an alien that is not a Trill symbiote that is identified as the opposite sex. With both personalities joining, they no longer see themselves as male or female. It would make exploring what it means to be a non-binary person more interesting, rather than just having a character say they are and leave it at that. Peace and long life, Dean Mikitich. Well, Dean, good letter. You know, here's the thing, and maybe they'll do this. I would think what if they wanted to explore something in a science fiction Star Trekian context, here you have a Trill, you have a symbiote that's been either male or female for a long time. Well, how does a Trill respond to being inside someone who identifies as non-binary? If you're a Trill, you're an alien, and you've lived multiple lives as both men and women. So clearly, you're down with the diversity of genders, binary genders. Like I've said, I do believe people that identify as non-binary or trans are naturally that way. I think it is hardwired into people, and that's something that I think has been not understood or problematic. Like, look, nobody is born and wants to go through the pain in the ass of say being trans in this world. Nobody necessarily wants that to happen to them necessarily. But if you're born trans and you've spent your life denying what you are, that's the problem, because there's no place you can go. We haven't had an accepting society where you could go to somebody and say, you know, I'm trans. And there's people that would be like, what? What we haven't had is people that you can go to and say, I'm trans. People go, oh, great. Can I help you with that? Can I help you? Would you like to transition? Would you not? How can I help you? And I think that's what we need more of in this society, in our society. But wouldn't it be interesting that 900 years in the future, that people who are born non-binary, they accept that and nobody cares, so they don't have a problem with it? And yet when you're when you're host to a Trill symbiote, they're used to being male or female. So the interesting part would be, how does a non-binary human being from Earth deal with an alien symbiote that has been put inside of you that is used to being one gender or the other? That's an interesting story. And watching somebody who's non-binary perhaps teach a Trill a thing or two. I think that could be interesting. But again, they're going to have to do it in an interesting way because, yes, right now it feels really pandering. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm curious to have a long conversation with anybody who feels that way. I know we have a couple of trans people that watch the show. I'd be curious to hear from them about the depiction of this because it could be interesting. And whenever I've heard people, whenever I hear from look, I mean, I watch a lot of Blair White on YouTube, and as she points out, the whole idea of being trans, biological sex is kind of part of that because we want to transition from one sex to another. So there's a lot of different issues in the community that I don't presume to always understand, but I would really be interested to hear how any non-binary or trans people think about how Adira is being portrayed by on Discovery. But I think we're going to have to see more of it to actually see. So we shall see. Nigel Lowry writes in and says, "Hey, Rob, just a really quick note. We managed to just get all of our filming done this weekend for a film to submit to the film festival. I'm waiting for the edit to come back, but I was really disappointed with the technical quality of the shots I saw. So if it's as bad as I fear, the film may not be submissible." Come on, man. You got to submit it. But making the film was so much fun. Well, that's good. Hard work, but it was very interesting to put theory into practice. It's like learning the highway code and a car manual and then stepping into a car to drive for the first time. I learned so much and could write an essay on the experience, so thanks very much for inspiring this challenge. Well, it sounds like you learned the exact lessons that I want people to learn. That's why I encourage everybody, you should go out and make a movie. Try it. You'll learn a lot about yourself and other people. So I'm glad it was a good experience. But please, please send us the movie. I'd love to see it, and I think everybody else would. Anyway, my reason for writing was just to throw a few potential titles for your new show with Dieter. So in no particular order, it is Slipped Discs. I like that. Pleased to Media, as in pleased to meet you, and Media Storm. Well, that was it. I told you it was quick. Thanks again for all your work and shows as we head into winter lockdown, and who knows what I'll look forward to in the next show as usual. And that comes from Nigel Lowry. But Nigel, I want you to finish your movie. Come on. Do it for me. The new show with Dieter, Let's Get Physical, we shot today. It's not going to be a live show. It's going to drop on Mondays, hopefully, if I get it finished. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's we have 3 different sections that we do, and this one's going to be a little longer because it's an introductory show. We want it to be a half an hour, and if you are interested in physical media, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button so you'll get it. We're probably going to do the show once a week. I think the opening show is great. I think the more people listen to Dieter Bastian, the more people are going to love him. I'm telling you, that guy is a YouTube star in the making, and it's a lot of fun to do a show with him. So I'm interested. Wow. So Nigel wrote in another letter. And I'm going to read it anyway. I'm just going to go through and read what people sent me. So Nigel Lowry sent in another letter. Hi, Rob. I hope you're doing okay, but settle in as this will be a long one. I am writing in response to you saying I should write in regarding the experience of making a film for the first annual Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival. I'll try not to discuss the film itself too much, as it looks at this point that it may be technically too poor to submit, but making the film itself was a great experience. Ages ago now, shortly after the dinosaurs were wiped out it seems, there was a world without COVID, and I could wander out from work on a Friday to the nearest pub for a few drinks and unwind with friends, generally talking movies, TV, pop culture stuff, and whatever. Shortly before our first lockdown in the UK, one of us mentioned in passing that we should make a film, but I never gave it any further thought as how we would do that. Yet when you spontaneously devised the film festival, which I did based on Dieter and Patrick's movie, that original filmmaking suggestion echoed in the back of my head, and I brought up the idea at our weekly Zoom session, which had replaced the pub gathering. I'm glad we're not the only ones doing that. I love that you're doing that. Not everybody wanted to be involved, but I said I had an idea for a film, and once we had secured a location and who was willing to go in front of the camera, I set to work. The concept is 3 friends are just hanging out, and one of them is trying to convince the others he has superpowers. But there is a twist, and I wanted the film to make more sense on second viewing than the first, when hopefully viewers would pick up on some carefully seeded Easter eggs, and I was set to become the writer and director. A movie axiom is talk is cheap, and with the budget set at no more than $200, I love it. I set about starting the script after the general concept had been agreed upon. I sent out the first few pages to the group, and we discussed it, as I had hit a creative barrier regarding the superpowers, but somebody came up with a solution, and I finished the script. A few minor line changes were made, incorporating comments of the cast, and then we did a first read-through on Zoom. The reading came to about 13 minutes. That sounds good to me. But we were advised to add a few minutes for action time by a cast member, Joe, who had experience working on various sets and productions, having studied at the nearby National Film and Television School, and was also acting as our producer. We initially thought the film needed to be under 10 minutes, so I easily trimmed a lot of dialogue to get to the draft 2 of this version, but then draft 3, the final one, was a bit trickier. Dialogue was reallocated to different characters to keep the flow, and the actors' suggestions were incorporated too, but here's where another old writing adage reverberated through my mind. Sometimes you have to kill your babies, and certain lines and exchanges just had to go, as there was no room for them. Finally, though, we had our script, which ran to 7 pages, and the scramble began for obtaining what we needed for the shoot and production. Joe had a clapperboard and portable lights, but we needed a tripod for the Samsung phone we were using. All right. A microphone and 3 props we couldn't immediately source. A specific issue of X-Men, which I already owned but didn't want to ruin in the course of the production, a bottle of cola, and some fake blood. As the team worked on the technical side, I created 10 pages of storyboards, each page with 6 frames, for a total of over 80 shots. Good for you, man. I love it. That's awesome. Storyboarding came easy to me, as I've drawn multiple comic strips for small press in the UK, but it was liberating when I realized that storyboards are not exactly the same as comic panels, which are confined by the reading left to right rule, which dictates where characters are placed for the dialogue to flow. In the boards, I could place anybody where I wanted, as this became irrelevant, and on the day of the shoot, we moved characters' positions without any detrimental effect. I numbered all the lines of dialogue in the script and matched them to the storyboard, so we knew exactly what lines were being said in which shot. We had a test meet at the location, which was the flat of one of the actors. We tweaked a few lines and shots and settled on a shooting day and hoped to get everything in the can within that one day. I had one eye on COVID, as I wanted to minimize such close contact as cases rose here in the UK, and I could see another lockdown on the horizon. So the day of the shoot arrived, and I hoped for a fun day. I had no hopes of winning anything in the festival, as I'd never shot anything except when teasing or playing with my sister's dogs. It was the fun of the experience I was looking forward to, putting into practice things I'd absorbed after devouring untold articles, books, commentaries, and behind-the-scenes documentaries and special features. Uh-oh. Things began well, with some kitchen scenes, but one thing they always say about filming is that you can't control everything and issues arrive. With the shortening hours of daylight, we realized when starting the bulk of the scenes in the living room that lighting would be an issue, so we had to close the curtains and light each scene individually to hope for any kind of consistency. This inevitably led to delays with setting up shots, as did the physical confines of the room and the cast having to rehearse their lines before each shot, as none were professional actors. I wanted the cast to have a good time too, giving them time to run through their lines and adjust the dialogue if they were having problems or had other suggestions, as the dialogue had a comedic touch and some suggestions wouldn't work tonally, but about 85% of the cast suggestions were worked in, and I enjoyed coaxing out specific line deliveries at some points and letting them play around with others. We did have fun and hit the standard blooper moments, fumbling lines, forgetting it was their line to deliver, perfect takes ruined by something minor, and so on. But we realized time was slipping away. And with my dyscalculia, number dyslexia, wow, meaning I would get confused as to which take we were on. The clapperboard was done away with as we tried to catch up. Further delays caused by picking scenes based on the flow of the day and cross-referencing the script and storyboards meant we inevitably failed to get everything done, by a considerable margin. Although dialogue heavy and relatively simple shots, I think the film was perhaps too ambitious for us. Well, me, I suppose, and the amount of shots we needed. We agreed to return the following week to blitz the final scenes, and I was determined to get everything before that looming lockdown arrived. It was announced the day before our second shoot, so we just slid by. I was laser focused after experiencing the first day's shoot and far more prepared. I had a shot list completed, batched together by cast requirements, and Frankensteined 4 new storyboard sheets, pulling the unfilmed shots into sequential order to match the shot list to minimize the cross-referencing. What I had expected to be 2 really quick scenes involving a fridge turned out to be a far more time-consuming, requiring multiple shots to ensure certain things were left in or out of the frame type of situation. Thankfully, most of the rest of the shots were simple single-person shots, and we were able to whiz through, even combining some shots within the same take to be cut into different shots in the edit stage. The final shots were designed to be intercut, but I have given Joe, the editor, 2 options, as I think we missed a line of dialogue and had to work around it. As well as the movie, I was also working full-time and doing Inktober every day, so never had the time to obtain and learn an editing suite, but can see the allure. Joe is editing experience, so I've delegated this role to him for the rough cut, which is due in just over a week, for us to discuss and Joe to make any final changes. Timing is an issue with comedic, I won't say funny as that's subjective, dialogue, so I really wish I had the time and ability to cut all this together. Again, another old phrase rings in my head when you realize a script is truly written 3 times and how much things may change in the shoot, but how critical the edit is. So now I'm sitting anxiously awaiting the edit, and I was led to understand that shots look good, but I was crushed by what I saw. I'm hoping that this was just a low-res file, probably, just posted to our OneDrive, but we shall see. At this point, I have no idea if we have anything viewable, let alone submittable. Come on, man. Do it. Flashdance that stuff. It's disheartening, but we achieved our goal in having fun, but we also learned a lot. Even on such a small project as this, shooting can be draining and more time is spent prepping and setting up than filming. Knowing unexpected issues and things will pop up and experiencing it, altering things to evade issues is both frustrating but rewarding when you find your way. It's great having a solid vision and direction, but allowing a lot of time for problem solving and allowing the cast to have input on their dialogue and delivery was just as important. Collaboration and moving forward when we all agreed was great, but sometimes compromises are necessary as shots can start backpiling due to minor discussions. So there we have it, Rob. My experience of making a first movie, having never made anything before, that alone is why you need to finish this and send it to the festival. I want to thank you for inspiring this project, as it was unbelievably fun, a surprising amount of work, tiring on shoot days, and really eye-opening. Not sure what the results will be, but I have my eye on the story writing project to get me through lockdown. Apologies for the length, said the actress to the bishop, and many thanks. Nigel Lowry. Well, Nigel, what a great letter. Again, 2 great letters. Thank you for writing in and telling me about this, because I love hearing it. And obviously, that's the whole point. If you had a good time doing it, well, that's half the battle, isn't it? Half the battle. Let's see. People have been firing in things over here. Let me go check out and see what you guys... James T. Spock says, only people with no traumatic problems would get into a starship? How about Reg Barkley or Spock for that matter? Both had inner turmoil and still made it onto a starship. Troy was a counselor. Her job was to deal with trauma. What James T. Spock is referring to is the fact that I strenuously objected to the depiction of the entire crew. Look, I don't think the crew of the Discovery acts like they're in a quasi-military organization at all. They don't treat each other respectfully. Rank is out the window. And to me, they're all a bunch of whiny bitches. And that's why when this last episode where everybody's undergoing therapy for their post-traumatic shock or whatever, they've been in the future for a couple of days. And everyone's like, oh, woe is me. I understand. They've been going through a lot. There was the Klingons, there was Control, there was all that. But I don't want to watch a science fiction action adventure show where everyone's going to therapy and winds up watching movies, classical silent films on the end of the ship. That's so ridiculous. Give me an episode like Battlestar Galactica where they're going to work out their problems, putting gloves on and getting into the arena and fighting it out. I love that. But yeah, I'm not Yeah, but anyway, here's the thing. The people that are on starships are not beyond, I don't think that they're beyond having trauma. Sure they do, but for the most part, these are the best of the best, and they understand when you're out there on the final frontier, shit is going to happen. And if you're somebody who's prone to depression, you probably shouldn't pick a career in Starfleet because it's not for you. And watching the Enterprise crew or the Discovery crew just crying and crying and crying, and it was just, I'm like, enough of this. This is not escapist fun for me. And I don't want to be on that ship. I wanted to be on the Starship Enterprise for most of my life. I don't care if I ever set foot on Discovery in my imagination. I don't care. There's nobody on Discovery. I mean, I could hang out with Saru and talk to him, and I'm like, Saru, you're about the only person who knows you're in a Star Trek show. Everybody else is talking like they're supposed to be in a Star Trek show because that's how it's being written. It's written like, look at Star Trek, was always progressive, was always this, was always that. We have to make it that way. And I'm like, no, you're kind of missing the point. Willow is here. And the thing is, by the way, let me get back to this, James T. Spock. Yes, Spock has inner turmoil between his human half and his Vulcan half, and he mostly has inner turmoil with the static with his father, which has been going on for a long time. But the fact is, he's still great at what he does. Other than once every 7 years when he throws plomeek soup at Nurse Chapel, Spock is a baller. And he doesn't wallow in guilt and I feel that that's what's happened in modern Star Trek. Let's make it more like people on Earth. We don't want to make them elites. But they were the best of the best. The best of the best. So that's what bothers me about Discovery. Willow sends in a tip and says, if a lot of theaters end up closing down, might we see a resurgence in lower to mid-budget films since they're capable of making a profit on VOD? I think we will. Look, you know what? I've never judged a movie by how much it cost. Like I always said, you can make an Avengers dinner party movie where all the Avengers, it's just an expansion of Age of Ultron, and they all come over and you make the big chill with the Avengers. Everybody's meeting about Black Widow dying, so they all meet for the weekend to have sort of an encounter group, and everybody tries to talk to one another. I would watch the hell out of that. It's not going to be very expensive. So, yeah, once again, Sean M. became a member. Thank you, Sean M. A Factual Opinion is here and says, I don't buy physical media, but I would love to rent 4K Blu-rays for my 4K TV. It's too bad Netflix doesn't let me. I know. I don't know why they don't. They probably make a lot of money. Stubble McShave is here. Stubble McShave says, I listened to the old Inglorious Trexperts episode with Jeffrey Combs. I found it interesting to how he describes Ian's cast roster as a baseball team. A baseball team in the sense of having a large stable of great actors, even for secondary and tertiary characters. That's exactly right. That's one of the reasons I love Deep Space Nine so much as we went further down in the show, how many great guest stars they had. It was awesome. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. Nick Parrish sends in a tip and says, what's up, Rob? I know I've been missing this the past 2 weeks, but when I clicked on a recent Robservations episode from a few days ago and saw you had the Last Jedi Skywalker hairdo, I thought I must have come out of a hyperbolic time chamber. Yeah, you know what? It's not really different. I mean, I'm just, I don't have any product in it. Basically because I ran out of product. I got to go get some more. But yeah, it's kind of fun to grow my hair long. I need to have it obviously shaped. It looks like an animal has died on my head. But yeah, that's very funny. Yeah, well, I'm glad you're back, Nick. Glad you're back. Brendan Sheehy sends in a tip and says, Rob, what is your favorite Wes Anderson film? For me, it's Rushmore, the perfect balance between Anderson's whimsy and visual flair with a trinity of characters I can emotionally invest in. Yeah. Also, does anyone play Badass Depressed better than Bill Murray? Well, Brandon, let me tell you, I love The Life Aquatic. People don't love The Life Aquatic. I love The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. But I think Rushmore is probably my favorite. But the Grand Budapest Hotel is really good. And, yeah, I mean, yeah. And I like Isle of Dogs a lot. But as much as I like Rushmore, and I actually like Bottle Rocket a lot too, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou might be my favorite. It might be my favorite. And everyone's like, wait, what? I know. I love it. Mus Hussein sent in a super chat. Well, thank you very much. I very much appreciate that. Nick, I love that. Mus Hussein. I like that name. I know Hussein. I get it, but still, Mus Hussein. That's a cool name. Nick Parrish says, well, Rob, we have reached the conclusion of election endgame. Joe Biden is getting beat by Robert Downey Jr. in a final battle, but when George Biden's defeat looks imminent, George Biden hears Pennsylvania say, on your left, and the blue wall arrives through the time portal. Yeah, look, I just think that if you look at this election, a lot of people voted, which was great to see. I mean, they're talking about 80 million people voted for Biden, and 3 million more people voted for Trump this time than voted for him in 2016. So if nothing else, people are active. The political base is, everyone's voting. And that's a good thing to see. I really like that people are out there participating in the democratic process, no matter who wins or who loses. So, wow, I have a lot of whining about movies and things like that. Let me stretch. Oh, I'm just tired. I've been tired all week. Stubble McShave says, Stubble's here. Hi, Rob. I wanted to talk about 2 agendas that have been going on in Hollywood. The first is an agenda that was going on historically and one that's going on now. The agenda that went on historically was the exclusion of minority groups in movies. This was an agenda that, to a large degree, went on without a deliberate intent. People in places of power hired people from their own group when it came to ethnicity and gender. It was not a concerted effort. It was just natural to hire people that look and think like you do. The result in a lack of opportunity for certain minority groups. Actors of a certain ethnicity were often given the role of generic race-type characters, generic Asian, Mexican, and so on. I don't think there was any ill intent involved with this. It was just normal thinking for the people making the decisions. I know. Our present agenda is to counteract the first agenda. The second agenda is to deliberately give minority groups and women more opportunity in Hollywood. It may seem like a good thing, and there have been good intentions behind the deliberate drive for more representation. The problem is that sometimes have done this in a very clumsy way. I agree. As a viewer of these movies that's been done clumsily, we can feel this agenda being forced upon us. It doesn't feel natural. This has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and if you get hit with the obvious agenda too many times, then hits create a kind of hurt in people. It's like when you've been physically injured at the same time too many times, or the same place too many times. You get overly sensitive to the smallest touch on that area of the body. Although it wouldn't be that much of a deal with casting that type of minority actor in a vacuum, the constant barrage of clumsily incorporated minority characters has made some fans put up their backs at the smallest thing that smells of an agenda. It's true. I don't know how to solve this. There's a need to give more types of people representation in this world, but the way it's being done in so many cases have been bad and really clumsy. It should be done without putting up a sign on it. I've done food metaphors for movies earlier, and I think I've got one that fits the occasion. The inclusion of underrepresented groups of people are the vegetables of our dish, and I think there should be less raw carrots on my pizza and more mixed spinach in my smoothie. The representation shouldn't be a natural part of a movie, which elevates the end product and is not something that stands out to piss people off. An example of this would be the often mentioned Cisco in Deep Space Nine. It seems natural that we have a single widowed black man with a loving father. They don't make a big deal out of it. It just is. Thank you to Stubble. I agree with that. I love meeting Brock Peters, and they never mention the fact because, again, in the 23rd century, nobody cares. Nobody cares. So a great letter, though. Thank you for writing it in. Jeffrey Mao wrote a letter for whining about movies, so I will save that for whining about movies. Let's see. Let's see. That's another. Wow, a lot of whining about movies. That's pretty amazing. Kenny Crayley Jr. is here. Dear Robert and members of the Post-Geek Singularity, I'm back again with another letter, and for today's letter, I wanted to talk about my favorite DC Comics hero, Superman, and why some have had a difficult time giving us a more hopeful and human Superman Clark Kent on screen in films lately. So here goes. I grew up reading Superman in the comics back in the early 90s and have been a huge fan of the character ever since in all mediums. The character of Superman, or as he's sometimes known as Clark Kent, or Kal-El, is universal. He stands for hope and truth and justice in the American way. He gives hope to others who do not have it and stops evil when they threaten the world. On film, Superman has been portrayed by great actors like Christopher Reeve in the 78-87 film series, Brandon Routh in Superman Returns and the Kingdom Come, Superman in CW's Crisis, Henry Cavill in the DC worlds of Superman, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Justice League, and soon in Zack Snyder's Justice League 2021, and on TV by George Reeves in the Adventures of Superman TV series. Dean Cain and Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. Tom Welling as Clark Kent in the CW. Where was I? In the CW. What I'm excited for is the CW Superman and Lois coming in 2021. Superman on film and TV have had good TV shows and bad TV shows. He's been in great movies and in some really bad movies. I guess for me, if you're going to make a great Superman story in live action, you do it well, and you have to stick with the core character to have him do some heroic things and show him going through his struggles and be an everyman and show him to the people of Metropolis and to his adoptive hometown. Too many Superman stories of late too many stories as of late in live action, not to the faults of anyone to try and make a Superman movie, but have become too dark for him to be more like Batman and Superman. Clark Kent is not like that. He's far more compassionate and stands for hope, as Cavill's Superman about the S in Man of Steel says. It's not just an S on my world, it means hope, and Supergirl Kara said it in Season 1, Episode 1 of her series. I didn't know that. We need more than ever in these tough times that we live in heroes like Superman that give us hope. Well, those are my thoughts, Rob. What are yours? Take care and keep up the super amazing work. Up, and away, sincerely, longtime watcher and listener, Kenny Crayley Jr. from Ohio. Well, I think that's a really good idea. The Superman character is cool, and I love the Mego Superman toys, but after a while, it's like this guy should just take over the world. What's anybody going to do to him? And remake it in his own image. And they did that in the Miracle Man comic when Alan Moore was writing it, but I would like to see it done. I'd like Superman to be like, enough, I'm taking over. You have to do what I say. And he becomes sort of a super dictator or something. I wouldn't mind seeing something like that. It could be kind of cool. You know what? I was asked not to read this letter. It's another Sean Pullen. I'm going to save this, though. I'm going to read it because I really like this letter. I really like this letter. This one comes from Dean Mikitich again. Hi, Rob and PGS. So I've been catching up on the critical drinker reviews of classic Trek movies with guests. His last one was with that Star Wars girl reviewing Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. It's a great stream, but I have to say a big thanks to you, Anna. She mentioned in the stream that she followed Gold Ducat on Twitter, and we should check it out. I don't know if I've seen this account, Rob, but I've seen it. You're asking me if I've seen it. I have seen it. But it is comedy gold. It focuses on American politics, but everything is twisted from the Cardassian leader's point of view. So instead of Trump's slogans like Make America Great Again, it's Make Cardassia Great Again. Instead of building the wall along the American southern border, it's building a Dyson sphere around the Bajorn system. So you get the idea. I've been going through these tweets, and some of them have given me a good old laugh, something we need at this time. If you've not seen this account, check it out. Does not matter which side of the aisle you stand on, it will brighten up your day. Yes, I have been following Gold Ducat, the fictitious Gold Ducat, for a long time. I am a huge, huge fan of his. So what's not to love? It's good stuff. So thanks for writing in. I very much appreciate it. Let's see what is next. This one comes from Johnny Boy. Hello, Johnny Boy. Rob, so this letter pimps one of our new moderators' YouTube channels, which I'm not generally in favor of, but by the same token, it also pimps the Poppy appeal, which is very cool in a way that Brits communicate. Armistice Day. Ooh. I'll let you make the call, obviously, but I have a soft spot in my heart for World War I stories and remembrances since my maternal grandfather served at a military base. Poppy Appeal. Wait, did you send me a link? Oh, hang on. Maybe the link is down here. I don't think you did. Well, I apologize for that. If you can send it to me again, that would be great. Torn Atkinson is here. Torn says, Rob, you said that the film we submit has to be an intergalactic premiere, but what about releasing partial footage and or a trailer for the film? That is, in all the same rules apply, but you can interview a unfinished trailer or an iPhone that's broken that plays trailers. So you can. So you can do whatever you want. We don't limit you. All we ask is that you make something. And you are making something, right? Let's hope so. But thanks for that letter, Torn. I hope, I don't know if that's helpful at all, but thank you. Let's see what this next letter is. I'm sorry, I'm going. I hate when people do that. It's a pet peeve of mine. So let's see what the next letter is. Ooh, I love all these letters. This one, again, comes from Torn Atkinson. Animation is my industry. I'm a storyboard artist. Check out the latest Last Kids on Earth. Would be cool to hear you read the attached article and discuss it with Post-Geek Singularity members. Although Lower Decks is animated in Vancouver, my hometown, the boards were done in LA. Now that COVID has everyone working remotely, I'm hopeful to get back onto season 2. Wish me luck. Well, good luck. Good luck, sir. That would be great. You could take video the whole time. Wow. You know what? Something has gone wrong. I have a glitch. A ghost in the machine, so to speak. Let me go back to this. Alexander Wilson's here. Alexander Wilson says, I was listening to the former Mafia member Michael Fenghizi discuss The Godfather. He said that his Mafia boss, Joe Colombo had final rights on the film. This is one of the reasons they never actually mentioned Mafia or jargon in it. Thoughts? Yeah, people have brought that out to me over the years about how they don't ever say Mafia in The Godfather, but they do have the great the scene in the courtroom where Michael Corleone is getting grilled, and you hear a little bit of it there. But yeah, look, I think The Godfather is just about as authentic as it can get, and it is peak verisimilitude. So I'm hoping that I'm glad that I've always wanted The Godfather to be considered the greatest mafia movie. That I think it has peak verisimilitude. I know, except the one hit, but I love it. That's why it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Alexander also says, Farnese also said that Coppola didn't want to do a Godfather 3 and Paramount forced him to do it. Is this the reason it wasn't his best work? Well, I think he did. I think he needed money. I think that's why he took the job doing it. And they paid him, I guess, handsomely, and it helped him get out of whatever debt he was in. And that's good. Alexander Wilson's back and says, he already said that. Justin Tonner says, hi, Rob. Barnes & Noble's Criterion 50% off sale is back to November. I wanted to pick up the Philadelphia Story and War of the Worlds Blu-rays. Can't wait to see their 4K restorations. Can't wait to see Bond whining about movies. Well, that is tonight. We start with Goldfinger tonight at 7:30. And I want to thank you for that. You know what? I thought I had a lot less letters than I thought. I'm going to save these letters. And I'm going to read more tomorrow. So if you haven't heard your letter and you sent them to me, you can read them tomorrow. I think I'm going to bring this show. It's been a little over an hour. I think I'm going to bring it to a close. We're back at 7:30 tonight. I'm back tomorrow. I'll have more to tell you about certain things and things I haven't revealed yet. And I think we'll just call it a day right now, so you can come back to whining about movies at 7:30, and I can go do what I need to go do first. I got crazy amounts of work, people, crazy amounts of work. And as I said this morning, Dieter and I shot our first episode of Let's Get Physical Media, and it was fun. It was fun. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle being, kind souls, however you identify across these 28 known galaxies, please hit me up and tell me about them. I want to know. Tell me about a non-binary character hosting a trill. How does that work? How do you feel about it? Love to hear from anybody in the community from that has insight, that can give us some insight we might not have. But anyway, I'm going to bring an end to this quick episode of Robservations, episode number. What did I say it was? It's 552. Amazing. 552. I want to thank you all for being there, standing through me through thick and thin. I want to thank my moderating staff. I want to thank, who's here? I don't even know who's here. I didn't even look. Bunyan Snipe is here. Well, thank you, Bunyan. I appreciate that. Looks like that's it. That's all who's here. Well, I want to thank Bunyan Snipe for being here. Thank you very much. And, the Richard's here. And everybody should go seek out the Richard on the Post-Geek Singularity Facebook page and the Whining About Movies Facebook page, and tell them I sent you. I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel the way you do, whether you're writing letters, whether you're giving us super chats, whether you're supporting the channel via memberships, which is great. I can't wait till we reach a certain threshold. I think we said 50 or 60 that we're going to start doing some extra programming there. But until then, you can still watch all of this stuff. Well, you'll always be able to watch this show for free, but you also might help us create something new. That's what I want to do. So anyway, thank you all for that. And remember, there's also Mike Bodden, who makes this possible, and Greg Smith, my old friend Greg Smith, who was the star of the very first Robservations episode where we went to his house. But I want to thank everybody, and I will be back. I will be back tomorrow, and I will be working on our show with the show we're going to launch, which is Let's Get Physical Media. Should be fun. But anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, however you identify, I am going to take my leave of you now, and I will be back at 7:30. So I hope to see you then. Robservations, episode number 552. Signing off. Remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I say, have a better day.